Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Munoz, CEO of the Cultural Communications Agency, D Flash. Each episode, I bring on different business leaders who are doing some game changing work. And this episode, obviously, no different. I'm so excited to have Jose Quiroz, who's the head of digital at Antonio in Paris, where we talk about digital, marketing, sales, and his interesting journey to get where he is. It's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Jose.
How are you?
Good. Causing trouble as usual.
Good, good, good. I would expect nothing less. Yeah.
We're now into the new year, but the podcast stays the same. So, Jose, what was your first job?
So my first job was actually, so I like to start to tell people I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm an immigrant. And so I worked.
Same thing. Same, same,
Awesome,
same, and
awesome.
same.
Yeah, so I worked a bunch of immigrant jobs coming up. I mean, like my very first job was janitorial. I think I was 12 or 13. My dad had a janitorial company at the time, and his motto in life was you work 23 hours a day, you sleep one. You don't want to work today, you don't eat today. And so that was the first job, weekends before high school, before class started or school started, we would go clean a store and then, show up in the cafeteria in the morning. So janitorial work was the first work that I did.
Oh, I understand. And so, what did you learn from all that?
Oh man, I think the most valuable lesson there was just showing up and working. I growing up, I think the biggest skill set, I guess, that I took from there was the consistency of the work. My father's story is amazing. He was an entrepreneur in Mexico. He had two insurance offices, brokerage offices. Started all over at age 40, came to the States with a wife and kids, not knowing the language, not knowing anything, obviously. And by 55, became a millionaire with his company, who generated millions. And it was janitorial. And it was nothing but working 7 days a week and just consistently hitting the ground running and just finding opportunities in front of you.
Wow. Well, that's an incredible background. I mean, listen, as I always say, like, if you want something done, ask an immigrant, because especially when you're first gen, because like what your parents gave up to bring you here, and
Right,
so
right, right.
it is built into your brain to work your behind off,
Yeah.
and also to value family more than anything on earth,
Hmm.
uh, and want to make your parents proud. So, right there with you, understand.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
uh, so starting from having that first job working for your dad till now, what's that journey been?
Yeah, that journey's been a fun one. So, so I'm actually, I don't know if I'm first generation because I was born in Mexico, came here as a kid. So I pretty much
Okay.
worked, labor work. Oh, you were born in Mexico as well?
Born in England.
Oh, awesome, awesome. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So
So yeah, perfect combination here. That's awesome. Yeah, so it really just was just consistently working. And then when I was in college, kind of the universe or God aligned for me. And when I was getting ready to graduate, Obama passed the Dream Act, at least part of the Dream Act, which allowed immigrant kids to have the right to drive and to get a job here. Not necessarily a path to citizenship or anything like that, but at least you had a social security number, you had a license now, and you had the ability to kind of move around without being scared.
mhm.
And so I just started trying to find my way into corporate. I had already been really, really fascinated with digital. At that time, I was doing music, and I knew, you create a MySpace page, you put music on there, and then you tweet it out. That's how you're gonna get people to listen. And so at that time, Instagram wasn't around yet. None of this stuff was around yet. But I was just really interested in it. So I would just hit resumes, found recruiters, and I got placement into my first role, which was a temp position, literally just doing data uploading. They had just launched a new intranet, and they needed to take a bunch of their sales and marketing collateral from one platform over to this new platform, and they needed a grunt to do the work. So
Mhm.
but I was, honestly, I was extremely happy to be there because, like I said, I had been working labor work, painting, janitorial, landscaping, construction, all that stuff during school and just growing up. So I was happy to be in an AC office, sitting down and listening to
AC, of course.
music. Yeah, because those summer construction jobs were brutal. So yeah, I just kind of brought my work ethic there. The digital, so the head developer in the online marketing department took a liking to me, really liked my work ethic. He then took initiative upon himself to talk to his director to say, hey, there's this kid that you might want to take a look at. Had an amazing meeting with her. She became, one of my first mentors, my father being the first one. But in career wise, yeah, she was the director of digital marketing, and she asked me if I wanted to be part of her team. I told her I'd love to, but I didn't study digital. I have a fascination to it, but I didn't go to school for it. So she said, "You work under me, and you'll learn whatever you want." And I worked for her.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. I worked for her for about 2, 3 years. Really, she carved a position for me. There was no position for me in her team. She assigned me as coordinator. So she's like, "Here, you can go, take care of business and herd of the cats." But that really gave me an opportunity to learn all aspects of digital because I would be in a meeting with developers, with marketing, with legal, regulatory, R&D, because everything in this company now was starting to get funneled through online. And I would also get sent to seminars and conferences and online courses, and anything I wanted to absorb and learn, she was more than happy to provide. So that's where I got my career started through there.
Awesome. And so, how did we get to being in Antonio in Paris? What's that story?
Yeah, so actually the Antonio in Paris is more of a partnership. So I worked in corporate for about 4 to 5 years doing digital. And I just kind of learning and maneuvering and overseeing all these different projects, from applications to building sites to empowering salespeople with digital tools, all these different things. And I got to the point where I think I was about 27 at the time, and I'm looking around, and there's people around me who are 35, 45, etc. And I think to myself, well, I think if I go do something and give it at least 10 years and it fails, I'll be back here with them because they got 10 years on me. And so let's see what happens. And then that was an amazing story. At the time, I had just got hired to run the online department for a nationwide retailer. They were retail first. They had been in e-commerce for about 3 years at that time, and they were just not doing it right. Getting blacklisted on email, not having the right privacy, and their marketing was off the wall. Their user experience on the website was just horrible. So I came in to kind of help these established business owners, these business owners who've been in retail for 30 plus years, really start to understand the digital world, right? So during that time, I had that same thought of I should leave and go do something. I had a very open conversation with one of the owners of that organization. Very heartfelt. He looked at me and said, what are you, 27, 28? I was your age when I was going to graduate to be a dentist, and my brothers asked me if I wanted to go in on this shoe store with them. And well, here we are now. So he gave me a great opportunity and said, well, what are you going to do financially? I said, well, I'll go back to my labor work and, see what I can do on the side. And he said, well, if you're going to go look for a part-time job or something, why don't we work out a contract? And they became my first corporate client. And then from there, I just started consulting and doing independent work. I did some local stuff, and then I really just started focusing on the bigger guys, on the corporate guys, because that's really where my skill set was. Taking a business that's doing maybe 5, 10 million online and taking them to 50 or 100, things of that nature, or finding new digital opportunities for revenue or for improving internal operations, things of that nature. And so then Antonio in Paris actually came through. I was a guest speaker at an e-commerce conference. This was January of 2020. So,
Oh, great
2 months
timing.
before, yeah, exactly. 2 months before COVID hit. That was crazy because I had my whole year booked. I was going to be on stages everywhere from Miami to Nashville, New England. And so I was able to do one in Long Beach. And that's where I found a partnership with Antonio in Paris. They're an amazing brand strategy agency, global team members from Mexico City, the UK, Australia, all over the US, etc. And they're really trying to build out their digital side, the digital side of their division. So that's where I come into play. I started heading that. And anytime we have a brand strategy project that involves digital, which at this point is pretty much everything, then I come in and help support with the team and see how we can get the brand or the organization a new way to leverage digital, whether it's a revenue source, penetrating a new market, things of that nature.
Awesome. And I think for a lot of folks right now, there's like all this kind of fluffiness about digital strategy, how to make more money, how to grow your business. With obviously lots of online retailers are trying to figure out where they live in this universe, or where in 2020. What are some good tips that you would have in terms of, like, if you've got a small business and you're at $1 million in revenue, like how do you get to that, over the hump to like the 5-10 million bucks? Like, what are some things you got to do?
Yeah, so typically what I see is you got to clean your house first. Usually I see people that when you're doing that kind of money, you have the potential to scale up already, but there's certain limitations going on. And most of the time it starts internally. Maybe you have some miscommunication with cross-departmental, interactions or collaborations. Maybe there's some processes or systems that you can implement to keep things a little bit more efficient. Because if you're doing those kind of numbers and you're still relatively small in your mind, you're probably going to be running like a very lean company, which you can do a lot as a lean organization, but you really have to get your ducks in a row. So that's usually where I start first. What are you doing? What can we optimize? What's actually working? What can we double on? And what's not working? What can you improve? And then the second is I actually read this book called Great by Choice by Jim Collins. I highly, highly recommend the book. But so the actual title of the book is Uncertainty, Chaos, and Luck: Why Some Thrive Despite Them All. Great by Choice. And and it,
Love it.
yeah, it's an amazing book. It's actually a business compilation. They did research study on about, I think it was 25 companies that they deemed as great. You have things like Microsoft in there, Southwest Airlines, etc. Anyways, they have a concept in there they call bullets and cannonballs. So if you're a smaller organization, start firing bullets. So meaning look at what products are moving, what services are moving, what percentage of their total revenue do they account for, and identify, is there a potential here? And if there is a potential, don't double down on it right away. The analogy they use in the book, which I think is great, is you have a ship that you're sailing and there's a ship coming towards you and they're ready to attack, and you have two options. You can start firing cannonballs, but if you miss enough times, you're going to be out of ammunition. Or you can fire a bullet, calibrate it, move it 40 degrees to the left, 40 degrees to the right, whatever you have to do. You keep firing bullets until you calibrate correctly, and then you fire the cannonball. And so that's the analogy they use when you're looking at things of this nature, right? So you're looking at products or services. What can you adapt for the digital space? What is the brand strategy? Where is your consumer going? What are the new habits that they've inhibited because of COVID? Where are they going to go? Where are they in the online space? Where is the white space that you can find for your product or service? And test it out, right? Fire a bullet. Do an MVP, do a beta test, do something that's going to get a little bit of traction. And the more you do that, the more feedback you get, and you can consistently kind of improve on the product or service digitally, then you'll get to that point in 6 months, a year, 2 years, that you can double down on that. And then it becomes a new big piece of your business. One thing that I would give as a piece of advice, because this is typically my wheelhouse, dealing with experienced business owners who just the digital world has kind of passed them by the wayside because they've been so focused on their industry, is to let them know that the digital world is agile. It's not like a traditional print ad, right? Where you print it, you send it, and if there's a miscorrection, then you got to bite your lip because you just spent all your money and you can't correct it. Well, in the digital space, you can correct. You can release something, get feedback, adjust, and keep going, and kind of have these different iterations of a product or a service. So start lean, fire some bullets, adjust as you go along, and then double down with the cannonball.
I love the idea of like doubling down with the cannonball, because I think that's a thing where it's, companies are, you don't, they're afraid to shoot your shot. And we all know as entrepreneurs, like that's how you have to do it. There's gonna come a point where it's like firing bullets was great, but like you've got to go for the big one. Like what do you think is sort of like the kind of best indicator for when it's a good time to do that cannonball? Because you've been firing bullets, you've been trying to calibrate just right, but like is it a revenue number that you think people need to be able to get to hit? Or do you think it's, amount of time that they've been working on it before they do it?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So yeah, I think it all comes down to your KPIs, right? What are these key performance indicators that I've set for myself to determine whether this is a success or not, right? Because success to one person is not success to another person, especially when you're talking about company size, right? So revenue is always the best indicator, right? Because all right, yeah, people are willing to pay for this. This is a validation here. If I can get X amount of people paying X amount of this, then I think that's success. Let me scale it up with advertising, with loyalty points, reward activities, whatever the case may be, referrals, etc. Another one too, especially when you're doing kind of an agile approach and you're taking it step by step, is engagement. Look at the engagement. So if it's a content play, if it's a service, a training, etc. What is the engagement of the individuals within that product they're offering? How are they consuming it? Are they sharing it? Are they likely to share? How are they? How much time are they spending on it? If it's a platform play, things of that nature. So engagement is another huge indicator to see whether that product or service is viable for the masses, right? Because again, it's really hard to fake the funk when it comes to engagement. People are either going to
Exactly.
love it and be in it, or they're not going to. So engagement is another one that you can look at to determine that.
Awesome. And, say someone's just starting out and they're like, I can't afford to hire you, Jose. Like, what are some things whereby, like, listen, I want to take my little Etsy store and really move it to the next level. Like, just as a kind of, here's how we can get from A to B, not even from A to C, like it's A to B. How do you kind of get this actually off the ground and started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to clarify, they can definitely afford me. The way I have the way I have structured
Okay.
the way I have structured my business is I have three kind of tiers. I have what I call guidance calls that are free. This is just to guide someone in the right direction because again, they probably don't understand the digital world, not all the opportunities in front of them, et cetera. So I just kind of guide them. But then after that, you get into your kind of paid services. So you have strategy sessions, which is the most affordable. You have strategy sessions with a custom plan. That's where we do strategy sessions. Plus, our team takes time to actually create a custom plan that includes messaging, strategies, all that good stuff. And then you have your part three, which is full agency work. So I kind of structured it in that way where people can always feel comfortable to reach out and can help them in any way, shape, or form. So just wanted to clarify that. But yeah, going to A to B, this is all about analyzing. And the beautiful thing with digital is that there's so much data at your disposal. So if you have to if you have to brush up on your data, learning how to read data, how to track data, how to use data to predict, right, future purchases, et cetera, then you might want to hit lynda.com or a master class on it or something just to kind of brush up on it or hire a resource for it. But first thing I would do is look at all the activities going on. So if we're taking specifically an Etsy store, I would try to see whether it's through Google Analytics, through Etsy Analytics dashboard, through a third-party analytics tool. Where's my traffic coming from? Now, not all traffic is created equal, right? So then where's the most traffic that's the highest converting? Then try to understand why. Who are those people? Where are they coming from? Typically, especially when I was focusing on the local businesses, I would tell them, don't bite off more than you can chew. Start with one strategy, double it down, and get it producing the results that you want before you start dabbling into another strategy. That's another thing with the digital space that I kind of disagree with the likes of Gary Vee, right? Where he mentions to these business owners, you should be everywhere and anywhere online. Get a TikTok, get a Clubhouse, get this, get that. Well, most businesses with an Instagram, they can outperform, right? I
Right.
One of my old clients is a real estate agent, been 10 years in the game. When I met him, he was doing Facebook, Yelp, Instagram, Yellow Pages, and traditional print, billboard, etc. Now, it's been about 5, 6 years that we casually consult with each other. All he does is Instagram, and 80 to 90% of his referrals are coming directly from Instagram. We did one campaign during 4th of July that drove more than 800 comments, and those were comments where people tagging other people to engage with him because he was doing a giveaway, and it was kind of a, hey, I'm here to help you guys out type of thing. So don't think that you need all of these different tactics. Look at what's working, optimize that, because if your emails is working, you can build more sequences, you can build better, smarter segmentation, you can grow your list more. If your social media is working, like an Instagram, then create more content, maybe start running ads now. Maybe start to develop a sales funnel that starts on Instagram, where people could actually purchase through Instagram or put a deposit down through Instagram and then kick them off to a Zoom call or whatever the case may be. In the case of Etsy, then obviously then you make your Instagram shoppable, have people be able to shop on there, create a space on your website that says, hey, you want to shop Instagram? If that's one of your top performing platforms, then you can remove the friction of the user and understand they're here, this channel's producing, let's optimize it to the best potential, then move out. Let's not get too distracted by trying to do all of these different marketing campaigns or platforms or channels at the same time.
Yeah, and that's the thing I think folks don't understand. And there's all this sort of mishigas out there where it's you should be here, there, and everywhere. And it's like, well, maybe you don't, honestly. You can just be over here doing your thing and doing it really well. Like, I would rather you just do things well. And on, say, Instagram, then try and be on 18,000 other places. In a previous version of DF, we did a lot of the similar kind of digital marketing work that you guys do. And it was always the same thing. It's like, let's knock out one really well. Because also people are busy. They don't have the time to do this stuff. We're in a pandemic, and folks need to kind of do the path of least resistance to the greatest possibility of success.
Yep, 100%. And I'll give you, a kind of a personal example. For me, when I was focusing on the local folks, I would leverage more Facebook and some Instagram. Then when I decided that I'm gonna just go corporate and bigger established businesses, I let all that go and just went directly to LinkedIn and then started adding email to it, right? So another part of this too is understanding who your target audience is, who is your target client, and where are they in the online space? Because yes, people in senior management might have an Instagram account, but they're most likely not as active in it as if they were in their LinkedIn account. So got to keep in mind, who am I targeting and where are they in the online space?
Absolutely. So say now folks are doing really well. Do you think it's something where they have to kind of keep up with that consistency, or is there ever a time when you can kind of just coast?
Yeah, coasting. Coasting I think, is a myth. Now, granted, there is a way to systematically coast, put a resource on it so they keep their pulse on it. I think the best example that comes to my mind is one of my cousins. Now what he does is he trains on the behalf of Amazon. He trains these individual franchisees, right, of the Prime vans that you see all over the place. So this guy's been in with Amazon for a very long time. And he was telling me about his workload, and he was saying, yeah, everything's automatic. Everything's systematic now. All I do is wait for a red flag to come into my laptop. Then I go and I check it out when I was working at the warehouse and make sure that things are legit. So even Amazon, who is the king or queen of systems, they don't just set it and forget it. They actually put people in place to say, well, hey, if there's a red flag, then go fix it, because at the end of the day, you're going to need to keep your pulse on it. So there's no such thing as ever just kind of fully coasting off of it. But again, you could do it smart by hiring resources, creating systems or triggers that can allow you to get notified when there's an issue, when you have to look at something, etc. Another thing too, especially when it comes to understanding the consumer, is people change. Things change. COVID happens. People's habits change. Their perspectives change. Their beliefs change. Black Lives Matters was a huge shift in people's mental state, right? So you can't just kind of let your foot off the gas and say, okay, great, I understand my consumer at this point, and I never need to understand them again. With Antonio in Paris, we actually do customer insights for AT&T every 18 months, because they're fully aware that people are changing. The way that they're looking at carriers and 5G and this and that is going to be consistently changing, because the marketplace changes, because people change. So There's no really such thing as kind of set it and forget it and great, now that's running, so I'm going to go ahead and let it be. But there is ways to structure it, whether it's with technology or with people resources, that at least gives you the feeling of, okay, great, I don't have to spend every single waking moment on this anymore, but I have somehow structured it where I'm keeping my finger on the pulse.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing that's, it's just so necessary, especially at this particular it's like finding that balance. Because if you're staring at that stuff all day long too, it won't make the sales go higher. So you gotta find
Exactly.
like you gotta find the way around it. So thinking about that, like what works, what doesn't, test and learn. Tell me about some times when you've had a really incredible challenge of a lot of this stuff and how you were like, I'm never getting out of this, and then you did.
Yeah, so I think the biggest one that comes to mind is with this retailer. Um, E-commerce is competitive, extremely, and especially when you start really taking in consideration your margins. So the really tough challenge there was, we have a retailer who's competing with the likes of Nike, Adidas, Vans, etc. Now, interestingly enough, these are our brand partners, right? We sell their product, but now we're competing with them too on the direct to consumer. So when looking at the consumer, looking at the product, looking at all the different channels of communication or digital, we're really having a hard time trying to figure out, well, how do we compete, right? When we were looking at the affiliate channel, well, we're trying to offer 5 to 7% commission payout on a product, while Nike's offering 15 to 25% commission payout on the same product. Looking at communication channels, okay, our email marketing is not as sophisticated as we would like it. We've inherited bad data, so how are we going to get as segmented and as personal as a Nike, right? So that was a big challenge. What we ended up doing there was, I'll give you kind of two parts of it, because there were so many different platforms and channels of communications that we were managing, but I'll give you two. One, the first one was the affiliate marketing. So again, the tough challenge here being, Nike is paying out 15 to 25% commission on a product. We can only safely do about 5 to 7% because of our margins. So what we did there was, we couldn't beat Nike on a commission level, but we could beat Nike on a relationship level with our affiliates. So we engaged them more. We stayed in front of them. We would text them, "Hey, we just got this new product that's being commissioned out. It's uploaded in the dashboard. Feel free." So we made personal calls. We even brought in a sneaker affiliate at that time in house to help us build the platform and help us identify what are the pains and aches that you as an affiliate are having with these big brands. How can we facilitate that? And that allowed us to build these relationships with these affiliates and get our sales increased without having to compete with the brand on that high of a commission, right? So that was one of them. The second one was, we were looking at email, social media, e-commerce in general, and saying again, okay, how are we going to compete with the likes of Nike and Adidas? They got us beat pretty much in every single platform, until we found a platform that they really weren't leveraging. And so when we looked at, well, Twitter is outperforming everything, so how can we double down here? Then we said, well, what is another piece of technology or channel that can kind of act like a Twitter, right? How can we get something that's going to perform like that? And with a little consumer insight, we realized that 95% of our consumers are coming through an iPhone on a mobile device. They're typically age range 18 to 34, et cetera, et cetera. Text messaging became a no-brainer at that point. And then we were able to find a vendor who can meet our needs, do a beta test with them. So we did believe it was a 90-day free trial with them. We generated a little over 980,000 just with that beta test. So nothing came out of our pocket. And we implemented text message marketing. And then that became a new channel that started really producing well for us. And we hadn't seen, these bigger guys really dive into it yet. As the year went on, then people started to get into that marketing channel. But again, that was another one that was really tough for us to say, these are organic channels. We can't compete with them. Let's look at the consumer and see how else we can communicate to them.
It's awesome. Great story. So, it's obviously that you clearly work hard because, again, immigrants, we get the job done. But especially in the last year, it's been hell for everybody. What have you done for your self care?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, lucky for me, blessed in that way. Yeah, I had been kind of working from home already pre-COVID anyway, so I had already been kind of working this routine. And it really became disciplined. I really like this quote from Jocko Wilkins, the Navy SEAL. I believe he said, "Freedom is, I think it's like something. Discipline drives freedom, or within discipline, there's room for freedom, something of that nature." That's really what it became for me. I would time block things that were important to me. So I would time block a walk. I would time block time for work, certain projects I had to do, time block working out, meditation. Anything that I knew. Actually, the first thing that I did, if we really want to really want to go deep here, is I took an audit of myself. I said, okay, I'm a male, I'm Hispanic, I'm around this age, I like this, and that. I need this stuff to help cleanse my soul. I need family time. I need nature. I need physical activity. I need time with friends and family, and etc. So I kind of took an audit of all that stuff, and then I figured out, how do I apply that to my day to day. So it became fairly regimented, but I also didn't really keep it strict to say, well, at this time and this time, I have to be doing this. It's just more of, these are the things that I want to get out throughout the day. Let me adapt and adjust, because obviously meetings come up, things come up, projects come up, etc. And as long as I kind of have a vague understanding of the things that I want to get done, both on a personal and business side of things, then I'm kind of content with the effort that I'm making that day.
Wow, that's very mature and adult of you, Jose. um, but refreshing. I think it's funny. Like I've been asking this question for like 2 years, as far and the 4 years I've had the podcast, and I'm always fascinated by the men's responses, because it is a vulnerable. I find it's a more vulnerable question for men to respond to than for women,
Interesting.
because of what you're supposed to be doing versus what people think you're doing.
Right.
And so it's always refreshing when I hear, a man on the show talk about, like, look, I had to take a look at me and see what the hell was
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
And figure out ways to, like, have the self-awareness to do that. And I think, because of the last year, there's a new vulnerability that is, more open for folks to talk about this. And I think the more men talk about the fact that, like, this is what I had to do. I had to look in the mirror for real and then make some honest changes. Then that actually helps us all, because it's not just a woman's thing, or, only certain men will do that. But, like, oh yeah, of course, we all have to be vulnerable. We have to take a look at ourselves and figure out how to be better, because we only have one life to live.
Hmm. Yeah, we're all broken toys. So let's see what we need to do to fix that, or at least make an attempt to.
Awesome. Sounds wonderful. And last but not least question, do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Yeah, I guess the only give, and it kind of falls into an ask, is I'm trying to give guidance here. During and then being fully transparent with everyone listening. Throughout my consumer research of my business and what it is that I want to offer to folks, I realized that a lot of business owners out there can use a guide. They need a sense of relief. They're overwhelmed with trying to understand the digital world. They're Googling it. You got people trying to sell you courses. Everyone's trying to tell you that this funnel works, that a Facebook works, that this works, and it all does work, but what works for you, right? And that's kind of where I feel like the guidance comes in, the guidance counselor, right? When you were trying to figure out your career in college and you said, well, I know I could do all these things, but what's the best route for me? And so did a very deep dive into understanding who are the individuals that I want to work with and who I want to support, and the guidance and sense of relief was the biggest thing that came out of that. So I'm offering free guidance. It's a 15-20 minute conversation just to get to know you with your business, what's going on, where are you at right now, and what are you thinking of doing, and then hopefully I can guide you in the right direction, whether that's some kind of resource, some technology, maybe it's working with me, maybe it's not, maybe maybe it's referring you to another agency that can support you, whatever the case may be. I'm just trying to guide you in the right direction. And to do that, it's very, very simple. You can just find me on LinkedIn or my website and shoot me a message that says guidance and say, hey, I heard you on the podcast and I just want to take 15, 20 minutes to chat with you and see if you can guide me in the right direction. So that's pretty much all I got for you guys. Is I'm just trying to offer some kind of guidance. So the
And
LinkedIn,
it's awesome.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, it was the number one frustration that I heard anytime I ever had a client meeting or a potential or a prospect meeting, right? That they say, first thing they say is, I don't know what to do. Gary Vee's telling me this, and someone's telling me this, and I don't know, like, what's going on here? And they're kind of looking at me like deers, like deers in the headlights. So let me let me help you out. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Jose Quiroz. That's JoseQuiroz. If you type in Jose Quiroz Digital, then most likely I'll pop out. And the website is JAYQUIROZ.com. And then we have also AntonioandParis.com if you guys want to check out any of the big brand strategy stuff we're doing. The client work there consists of Burger King, AT&T, Mini Cooper, really big players in there. So if you're at that level and you need figure out how you can leverage digital to improve internal operations or find new market opportunities, new revenue opportunities, then you can check out AntonioandParis.com too and look at that side of the offering as well.
Awesome. That's so lovely and generous of you. We will put all the details in the show notes so folks can get a hold of you. Because, I think if you have an e-commerce business and navigating that sea of foolishness that's out there to get to the heart of the matter is very difficult. So I really appreciate you being so generous to offer that to our audience. Jose, it's been such a delight chatting with you. It's always cool to talk to a fellow immigrant because we get it, we understand.
Right.
But also, like, I think, we don't have enough of these conversations around this topic because I think it's still a black box for a lot of people. And you've been really great about just sort of breaking it down to, like, whether you're just starting out or if you're a multi-million-dollar company, there are some really good facts and tips that you can use to help build your business, and they can also call you. So thanks again for being on the show.
Oh yeah, no, of course. Thank you for having me. I really love the conversation. So thank you.
Awesome. And that is our show.